Hi, it's Nathan Jenner. Fill your goodie bag at Oak Ridge Ford. Our October deals are smoking hot. For a limited time, your new Ford comes with a 55-inch 4K TV. But when they're gone, they're gone. Get the 2019 F-150 Lariat with leather and navigation for only $547 per month, plus HST on a 3-year lease with $0 down. Team Oak Ridge, where a reputation gets you here and the trust keeps you coming back. For full details, visit oakridgeford.com.
The team you can count on.
Hey, what's up, folks? This is the Leafs Convo podcast presented by Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. It is October 17, 2019, really early in the AM. Mike Augello and I have a lot of stuff to do throughout the day, but first things first, let's do some brief convo. The Leafs a 4-3 loser in D.C., Michael, up 2-0 in the first period, then that disastrous minute 18 in the second period. What do you say, buddy?
Well, good morning, Norm. It's funny because that game sort of mimics their victory the previous night against Minnesota. The winning team in both games opened up a can of whoop ass in the second period. The Leafs had a slow first period against Minnesota, came out, scored 4 goals in the second, 2 of them on the power play, and cruised to the victory. Last night, the Leafs, I thought, were the dominant team in the first period, get the 2 goals, Kapanen and Mikheyev. That third line continues to percolate, although the first goal was a shorthanded goal. And then give up that late goal in the first period by Jakub Vrana that I think gave the Capitals a little energy. And then early in the second period, they score 3 goals, and I think it was a span of a little over 3 minutes. And other than the Tavares goal and holding possession in the final minute and a half in the Capitals zone with the goaltender pulled, really, I thought Washington cruised from that point. The Leafs really didn't put much of a fight late in the second period and in most of the third until Tavares scored on that wrist shot. So I don't think it was a good performance, consistent performance overall. But I love the people that I'm getting responses from, and I appreciate them listening and responding and commenting on my blog on Hockey Buzz and in the comments on the convo. But when they're saying Michael Hutchinson's to blame, I say to myself, are they watching the same game that I'm watching? Because it wasn't Hutchinson. It was defensive breakdowns, pure and simple.
There's always someone to blame, Mike. This is the Leafs Convo podcast. Kasperi Kapanen, a shorthanded goal plus an assist last night. Ilya Mikheyev, another nice goal. This is a good opportunity for him to blossom because who knows how he's going to impact the game down the stretch, Mike. The Capitals, we know how they play. They dominated the Leafs, especially in that second period. And yeah, it does look different from stanza to stanza. But at the end of the day, the Leafs still look like a team that has a notch or two to go before they reach the level of the Capitals.
Yeah, I thought that Brian Burke made a really good point during the intermission of the Sportsnet broadcast yesterday when he said, the book on the Leafs is you hit them. And I mean, Washington already is predisposed to do that because of guys like Ovechkin and Tom Wilson. And Wilson threw a sort of a withering check at Tavares early in the game. And again, there was really no response from the Leafs because they have very few players who can respond. Their response is to play with speed. And they did that in the first period. But I think, the fact it was second of back-to-back games and maybe the energy level sort of sapped out as the game went along. And I always question, Babcock's approach when it comes to his goaltenders. Minnesota was a team that won 1 game and was playing terribly. They couldn't have won that game with Hutchinson in goal. And then when they needed a goaltending performance to steal points like Frederik Andersen has done many a time, they couldn't have put him in that game in Washington to steal a win. To me, that's what, and I know that Boudreau did that with Minnesota against Ottawa and then put Dubnyk against Toronto. It didn't work, but that does work at times. And Babcock always goes with Andersen in the first game, Hutchinson in the second. And I don't think Hutchinson was responsible for the loss, but maybe you need that big save. And sometimes you don't get the big save out of your backup goaltender.
If it was a slow decline, so be it. But falling apart the way they did over the span of 78 seconds and having it impact the game to such a degree, that's huge cause for concern, because the Leafs just became the Keystone Cops for a minute plus. And I mean, how often are we going to see that this season?
Yeah, and somebody scolded me in conversation on social media yesterday about singling out Martin Marincin, but on the one goal, and I cannot remember. I believe it was the goal that made it 2-1. Justin Hall was caught up ice but got back, and Marincin, who plays the left side of the defense, drifted over to the right side. And lo and behold, the goal scorer was on a one-timer, was playing where Marincin should have been, and should have been able to reach out his long stick to deflect the pass away. But instead, he was out of position, and there was your goal. And again, we know that Martin Marincin is what he is. We know that the bottom pairing is not going to get a lot of work because there's not a level of trust there for them with Babcock. This team is waiting for Travis Dermott to get back. But, that seems to be systematic, not only because Marincin's on the ice, but defensively, the top lines with Matthews and with Tavares. I mean, their focus should be on scoring goals. I understand that because they're amazing offensive players. But for this team to succeed going forward in the playoffs, they need to be tight defensively as well. And they really aren't. And that's something that is a work in progress.
And the Bruins come to Scotiabank Arena in the next 48 hours. What should we expect from that game, Mike?
I mean, if they're not motivated for that one, I don't know what game they would be motivated for. I mean, you're going to expect what we saw in 7 games last year. The Bruins will be the more physical team, but they do have amazing skill with that top line. Pasternak scored 4 goals against 4 goals in a recent game. I can't remember. I think it might have been New Jersey, but I can't remember who the opponent was. But, he's one of the best scorers in the league with Bergeron and Marchand. So their task is going to be very tough to shut that line down. And one thing, it's like right now, the Leafs offensive lines are in flux. Their forward group, for the first time, Babcock switched things around. Against Minnesota, he moved Trevor Moore up to the second line, shifted Kapanen back to right wing where he should have been playing, and Kapanen responds with the 2 points against Washington. But then he moves Ilya Mikheyev in place of Moore on that second line with Tavares and Marner. So right now he's sort of playing around with combinations. I think he's desperate for Zach Hyman to be back, but that they're not going to rush him back. But that that little confusion and that sort of upheaval right now, I mean, that's going to affect them against a Bruins team that is playing very well.
The team's big dogs are getting theirs. Mitch Marner, top scorer, 9 points. Yep. Morgan Riley with his 4-assist game against Minnesota. He has 9 points. Matthews, 8 points. Tavares, 7 points. Ilya Mikheyev, 6 points. Trevor Moore with 5 already this season. So the team is producing. What does it have to do to set a bit more of a tone and not just be so systematic? Is it too early for this team to start making a statement?
Well, if they're going to make a statement, it would be a good time to make a statement against the team that's beaten them in the playoffs 2 years in a row. So, I mean, I would think that would be an opportune time. One thing you have to factor in, a third of this roster didn't lose Game 7 to Boston, so it won't have as much meaning to them as it will to the Tavareses and the Marners. But I just think, and you can't deny that they're scoring points, and you can't deny their effectiveness and their firepower when they score 4 goals in a span of a few minutes in the second period on Tuesday. But the top core guys, with the exception of Austin Matthews, and the top defensive player in Morgan Riley. I mean, Riley had a great game against Minnesota on Tuesday. He did not have a very good game against Washington. He's arguably been the most disappointing defenseman in the 6 games before the Minnesota game. There's a lot of responsibility he has because he's their best defenseman. He's going to eat up the most ice time, and they need him to play at a certain level, the level that he played last year. And I don't think it's to blame, because I see some analytics people blaming Cody Ceci. It's not Cody Ceci's fault. I don't perceive that there is a bad chemistry, but Morgan Riley has not played as effectively as he did at the end of last year. And this team, especially with their defensive lack of depth until Dermott gets back, they need Riley to play better.
Yeah, absolutely. Any last thoughts, Mike?
No, I'm just looking forward to Saturday's game against the Bruins. It should be exciting. It should be. Let's just say this: the fans. If the Leafs win. If the Leafs don't win and they end up being 500 after 9 games, which they would be 4-4-1, then I think the concern level will begin to rise.
This team is under the microscope 24/7, as it should be. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, Norm.